Welcome. My name is James. Thank you for coming out tonight. We have a really fun agenda. Grateful for all of you who've joined us. This list of incredible humans came together thanks to some of you in the audience and some people who weren't able to make it tonight. But let me tell you what we're up to here. So you probably saw in the invitation, we're going to talk about financial empowerment from Latin America to metaverses, genesis of a borderless culture where everyone can play, create, earn at a global scale. That's really exciting, you know, like what's happening in our world right now and the future of work and lots of new opportunities for people that didn't exist a few years ago, partly due to technology and partly due to how we're communicating a little differently. Before we jump in, stablecurrency.org, please bookmark that. Visit that website today, tomorrow. There's a petition for the UN to recognize stable currency as a human right. You're going to hear about that a little bit more later in the discussion tonight, but check that out. Next up, I want to introduce you to my friend Eric, who is hosting tonight this property. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a teacher. He's my teacher. He's an inventor. He is our host. This is the Vadim House. He'll probably tell you what the Vadim House is. And I want to quickly introduce him to say a few words. So Eric, if you can hear me or see me.
Thanks, James. I'll be brief, but thanks everybody for coming tonight. Really appreciate you helping us bring the Vadim House vision to fruition. Vadim House is a place where we serve tacos and we bring people together for the purpose of inspiring each other and being inspired. It's a place where we're hoping we will have experiential art, we'll have silliness, we'll have seriousness, but ultimately we'll have creativity that will advance all of us and advance the world. We're really hoping to make it a place of memories and of substance. It's also our office, the office for Vadim. Vadim is a vision that we brought together starting in 2015 when all the tokens were fungible. And we wanted to create a world where that wasn't the case, where we can create objects of value that could come alive with 3D graphics and animation and creativity and move from person to person as currency does. And we're seeing it come together now in such a beautiful way all over the world. And our mission is to create an interoperable, open NFT metaverse, which is an extension on this plane of physical reality, an extension where all of us can live, work, and play and create. And the topic today is especially interesting to me and to us because it means if we have a stable currency where we can move value from person to person and everybody has an opportunity to express themselves, then everybody can become a creator and everybody can make money from that. It's kind of the next generation vision in my mind of universal basic income, which is universal basic creativity, where everybody has a chance to tell their story and to benefit from it, and where money can flow where it deserves to be without intermediaries. I think this vision is actually coming together, and the people around you today are part of, I think, on the planet, the people that are probably the leaders in this space. So I'm honored to be part of hosting them and hosting all of you. So thank you for being here today. And I hope that you'll gain something from this experience and come back and build your own here as well. So thank you.
That was awesome. Take a breath. Okay, quick thank yous. Barry, raise your hand. Our operations lead for this event. Thank you, Barry. Liam, if you're out there, raise your hand for curating the NFT gallery. Much appreciated. You've all seen a few cameras around. We're recording this. Defiance Media TV is doing that. Mark Scarpa's here. He'll raise his hand. We're going to record these panels, and you'll start to see them distributed through various channels next week, through Reserve and elsewhere. There's also going to be a bunch of interviews I think we're going to do over on the lawn afterwards. So if you want to participate in that, share your story, share your mission, join us for that. Without any further waiting, I'm so excited to introduce you to this first moderator, Neil Strauss. He is an author and a journalist. He's worked as a cultural columnist for the New York Times and a contributing editor at Rolling Stone. He's written 10 New York Times best-selling books, including Emergency and The Truth, as well as the iTunes #1 podcast, To Live and Die in LA. So Neil, please, the floor is yours and you can introduce your panel.
Yeah, thanks, James. James is really one of the first people I met on this crazy, interesting crypto journey. It's so interesting how many of you have sort of been in the space for, just out of curiosity, for, who's new to the space in the last year? Who's been in the space for over 2 years? Put your hand up. Over 3 years? Over 4 years? Over 5? So anyone who's who's been in the space for over 6 years? So yeah, so people, it looks like have been the journey for somewhere between 5 and 2 years roughly here. And it's such an interesting thing because it's it's all evolving and we're just sort of stumbling our way toward a future we know is there. And it's always changing. When I see people here, I've met them in other contexts in the crypto community where they're really passionate about something. And then it completely changed 3 months later, and that's cool because we just feel things coming to this inevitable, exciting point. And there's so much unknown, and there's so much almost failed things on the way to these successes, and it's so exciting to watch it all happen. And we're really optimistic about everything while the world is in this very precarious place, and we see the lines of battle forming in every major sort of superpower in every country, and it's all lining up, and we all know which way it's going to go, but it's how long it's going to take and how hard is it going to be. So it's a fascinating time, and I'm sure you're all here and excited because we're all part of this in every way, whether it's as artists, as entrepreneurs, as revolutionaries, as visionaries, as all kinds of incredible, exciting people here in all different parts of this space, which is now extending to everything. So I want to introduce the people on this panel who we're going to be talking to for a little bit before we have a great roundtable. There's so much going on. First, Emma Jane McKinnon-Lee, who runs DigitalX, which is the first digital fashion NFT protocol and marketplace for gaming and esports, an incredible, smartest thing she ever did. If I sort of understand the background, dropped out of college and just pursued her own way, and is just a pioneer in this field. So Emma Jane, are you here? Yes. Coming up to the panel if you're here. Awesome. I thought you were going to come here digitally. Okay, awesome. It's great to have you here. I'll have you ask, I was going to ask the panel a question. When each person arrives, I'm going to ask you each a question, and then we can start with the panel. The first, and it's going to be the same question, so everyone else can get to prepare, which is, what are you most excited about that's happening kind of in this space right now, and what are you most concerned about?
Okay.
Here, you can use that while I play with your mic.
I'm on? All right. So excited about is definitely how decentralization is becoming more at the forefront of things, or it's becoming more of the interface layer. I think for a lot of the time in this space, people have been building in it, but it's been more from the perspective of, well, how do I just create money for myself or generate wealth for myself, and not really looking at how do I build native to Web3. Because when we build native to Web3 and we put that at the front end, not just look at it as this back end technology, we can generate and catalyze even more wealth. We can kind of have these Y combinators of wealth in every part of the ecosystem or protocol that we're building. So I'm really excited about that because I think that's what NFTs is really showing. We have new market participants coming in from creators and designers, entrepreneurs. It's not just the trading and financial side, which is really how I got into the space. Really excited about Web3 and native kind of decentralized structures being at the front end. And then most concerned about, it's really the opposite side to that, which is still, I don't think still a lot of us are really leveraging these native ethos and principles of what Web3 represents, which is that decentralization matters. It's that ownership, agency, freedom, self-sovereignty over our futures is really important, and the blockchain and every feature of that is actually what gives us that power. So we need to be more critical of staying true to that and not just seeing this technology as a back end and replacing legacy systems. Actually, it's about revolutionizing every industry that exists today.
So true. It's a great point. Really well said. Yeah. Next up on this amazing panel is Alexa Mead. Alexa Mead, if you don't know her work, is an amazing installation and visual artist and does a lot of, like, it's almost indescribable to put into words. It's so unique what she does, and is working with NFTs now as well. And where's Alexa? Step on up. Oh, there you are. Cool. Awesome. And so I'll ask you the same question, which is, what are you most excited about in the space and what are you most concerned about?
Well, I'm really excited that alternative types of artists are now able to make a living from their art by selling them directly to collectors as NFTs. Because before, if your art didn't fit into a gallery, if it wasn't a traditional painting or sculpture, you didn't really have a way to monetize it. So like if you're a spoken word poet or a performance artist, now you can actually make a living off of art. And what I am somewhat worried about is that, this is supposed to be a completely centralized new model for artists, and we're finding galleries and other types of middle people trying to work their way into the NFT model and still take money out of artists' pockets when they aren't actually adding as much value. So I am a little bit worried about some of these legacy systems creeping back into what is supposed to be revolutionary new tech.
It's really a great point, and really is a parallel for what Reserve is doing with sort of stable coins in almost the same way. And it's a really great discussion to have, so thank you so much. And that really ties into our next panelist, what you were just saying as far as our opportunities. She's really new to this space, an interesting perspective on this, which is the Invaders NFT Supreme Being, meaning the artist who created the Invaders NFT set, which are awesome and displayed all over here, Ingrid De La O. And you really speak to what Alexa said as creating kind of new opportunities. So what you're most excited by and what you're most concerned by.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually only about 3 weeks old into this space, so it's really, really exciting. I come from the health and wellness space, so it's completely radical and different. Now I live on coffee and a little bit of nicotine. So, but it's really exciting because I'm just gonna speak from the heart. I been drawing since I was a little kid, and I never thought I was good enough to pursue this. And but I would draw and then leave it for weeks or for years. Would never touch a brush. And then it's just really in the past 3 weeks, it has really opened my heart, and I'm just really excited to be part of this because for the first time, I have the ability to actually express myself and be really tap into what it feels like to be creative in a way where I could be myself. And it's just beautiful to be part of this. And I'm just excited to be here. And thank you so much. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. And last but not least on this panel, it's such a fun way to introduce it because everyone gets a little time to talk. Content creator, Argentinian gamer living in Mexico, who I try to research, but my Spanish is poor, so I couldn't get on top of everything. But I'm really excited to meet, and really especially like the other side of this too is the pay to earn things happening. K-Manus88. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, my reality is pretty different. I live in Mexico. I'm from Argentina. Pretty poor countries with a lot of poor people. So this is what I'm really excited about. This is an opportunity. Here, people is make their living, is feeding their kids, preserving the value. We have inflation, 70% a year in Argentina, 1 million a year in Venezuela. So this is like a huge different concept. It's like I will still have my money at the end of the year. So it's something that probably most of you have never lived. But I mean, I haven't lived myself, to be honest. But yes, my countries, Venezuela, Argentina, Peru, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, especially Central America, really poor countries. So that's what I'm really excited about. Opportunity, like having a way of not living in America, but kind of finding similar opportunities. That's what NFT and crypto is about for us. And what I'm concerned, well, like half of the people that follows me does not have like a bank account or a credit card or the opportunity to have a mortgage to buy a house. So people is not really educated in finance, and they are pretty pretty much easy to get scammed. So that's something I'm trying to teach them. So well, that's my countries.
Thank you. I'll start with the question. I'll start with the split off. I'll just talk louder. But I'll start with I'll just talk loudly for now. I'll project. Oh, there we go. Or I'll talk to this microphone. I can do that too. Okay, cool. So I'll start with a question for you. Fortunately, we have 4, so like one keeps working, we're good. So just a question for you, which is I think it's a question that I know like people at Bancor and people are trying to work on, which is what do we do about the unbanked and how do we onboard them into this opportunity in a way that's safe?
Well, that's pretty hard because, I mean, it's so difficult to explain because sometimes you might think that 2 plus 2 is 4, but that's when you have food in your table. I mean, it's not really like that, you know. So teaching someone about bank system, finance, all that stuff, you first have to be sure that that person is gonna be safe, you know. It must feel safe first. So they're pretty easy to get scammed. What I'm doing, I have built a good reputation into the mainstream gaming for like 4 or 5 years. So as I'm really well known, I have been teaching from the basics. From the basics in my YouTube channel, I have a pretty huge influence in Latin America, and I'm trying to find like different companies and not only companies, even like social organizations that help me promote this. They kind of finance some of the content I'm doing. So I look to artists, actors, and all that kind of people to make this like something cool. I have to be natural. So I want people that are natural, that speaks like they are. So that's how they build these persons that are, it's not like they are, but they seem to be morally perfect. So they build trust in those people, and that's how they say, okay, if he's telling me this, it might be true. It's basic, it's not really how it should be, but as I told you, in Latin America, 2 plus 2 might not be 4. So you have to make something to make the people feel safe first.
Yeah, and it's a great question, and at least of what you were saying earlier, Emma Jane. So a question for you, which is like, and I think it's a big question to think about. Is I remember like when I was working at the New York Times, like the web was first happening. I was going to conferences and people were talking about MP3s, and this was going to be the great thing that equalized things. It was going to level the playing field, and musicians were finally going to be like receive the majority of the pay for their work, like 50 to 75 to 90%, instead of the 15% to 10% royalties. And now they're streaming and getting like fractions of a 1% on their music. In the meantime, the streaming companies, everyone sort of captured. And then they're trying to shift them to podcasts because they don't have to pay royalties on podcasts and further screw the musicians. And so this great opportunity turned out to be, no, sorry, you got to tour to make money. If you want money, your recorded music is done. So people want to be safe, right? That's when the middle person comes in to guarantee that all the safety and then clean up all the money and trap them in a new system. So I'm asking you a really hard question. We got to be prepared with easier questions, but blame Kim Manis 88. What is your thought on that? How do we prevent that from happening?
So just to repeat, is the question in terms of how do we pretend like?
Yeah, because you had said earlier that your concern is
right.
that it just becomes new boss, same as the old boss, right?
Right, just like a replacement.
And so people want safety and security, and they're willing to trade a lot for it. I mean, how many people who are concerned about safety and security gave like the iPhone your fingerprint than your face just because it's easier to unlock than typing in a password, right? So how do we keep things decentralized?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the short answer to that is like that is the blockchain itself, the features of the blockchain. But to do like a very quick history lesson, and to go back to kind of like the early stages of society. So we began with single entry bookkeeping, and this was very much like when agriculture was a bigger industry. And what this meant is like, okay, so I would have a ledger and I'd write on that ledger what I own. Maybe that was X amount of grains, Y amount of seeds, and it was very siloed, and I just kept that for myself. And then we moved forward in society, and this was like more in the Renaissance period and North Italian merchants, even the Medicis, and we brought in the innovation of double entry bookkeeping. And this kind of changed everything. And you could think, okay, just a new accounting system, how could that be so revolutionary? But it really was, because now it wasn't just about what I earned, but we could bring into the system addition and deduction. So it was what I owned compared to what you owned, and then we could also exchange and trade value. But in double entry bookkeeping, it was really, like you mentioned, this reliance on a centralized gatekeeper or middleman. So you can think about, which is really the system that we use today, banks, financial transactions, we rely on the banks and kind of what their ledger says. Then even social media and our data online, we're relying on, say, the data ledger of Facebook or Instagram and what they're perceiving. But just like anything, when an incentive system is set up so that one person can gain more power, gain more control, that's what happens. That's what's really incentivized. And that's why we have these middlemen today that are extractive, they're exploitative, that they try and take everything and it's zero sum, or that they're running to control the choke point, because that's how they make value. It's just how the Web 2 incentive model is really set up. So I guess now we are moving into, and we're still at the very early stages of the very first triple entry bookkeeping system, which is the blockchain. And this adds this additional dimensionality of time. And time is really important because now we can have a chronological order of events of exactly what happened when. And the blockchain, it's not just about having this ledger, but now it's a completely distributed, trustless, permissionless ledger that anyone can access at any time. It's completely public, so I can go on and I can see, well, this happened at this time, when, where, who owns what. And that is completely revolutionary, because now we don't have to rely on a centralized person to say, well, you did this at this time, but actually because it's 7 p.m. on a Wednesday and we're sitting in Venice Beach, I don't really feel like adjusting that ledger there. So instead I'm going to say something else because I want to take your asset and leverage up on my balance sheet somewhere else. So it's all about, we're really relying on parties where they're incentivized to be extractive, to be exploitative. But the blockchain removes all that, because it's kind of saying, well, we don't need you anymore. We can say, fuck you, in a sense. I don't know if bad language is allowed here. But we literally can. And we can just point to this ledger and we can say, well, actually you're wrong, and this is what happened. And that is so revolutionary, because it allows, freedom, agency, power, self-sovereignty. And, going back to the topic of all of this about NFTs, it's all about ownership. How do you really truly own what you contribute in a system? And then be able to be a part of every value that is brought out of that, or exchange, traded, so on and so forth. So I know that's a really long way of saying it, but that's really what it is, that the blockchain is your contract. And that's kind of, my point before about we need to make that the interface layer, because that's what's most important about this. It's not about it being a tech that replaces a legacy system, because if it's just about that, then the blockchain's really inefficient. Then we should just stick with these, centralized databases.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Great answer. And so Alexa, I kind of want to ask you from the perspective of an artist, it's first of all, it's just so fascinating what's happening, and I truly believe NFTs are going to be the great onboarder to this ecosystem. I feel like art moves and drives the culture in so many ways, and so I'm just curious what your transition was like and what you've noticed is better or not as good about this model for you.
So in my artwork, I paint on people and I make them look like a two-dimensional painting. And that's work that is typically very difficult to exhibit in a gallery because it involves having a live human model. And so galleries frequently haven't known what to do with me, how to sell my work, and frequently it's taken the form of static photo prints. But my artwork is living and in motion. So with NFTs, I'm able to actually have the video artwork as a digital asset that's now available to collectors. And so for artists who aren't necessarily working in traditional mediums, now they can have a home for their art, and they're finding it in blockchain with NFTs. Can you also repeat your question? Sorry.
Yeah, and by the way, the question matters so little. They're all excuses to get the knowledge from your head. So you can literally spin it in any direction you want. The answer is less important than getting your thoughts. But yeah, so what else have you found that's kind of, you were answering it perfectly. What's working about this model for you, and what are the things you're kind of excited about, and what are the opportunities it's affording you that it couldn't before? But it sounds like it's great because your work didn't work in the traditional gallery commerce mode of art, and now it can in this other world.
Exactly. And, galleries have traditionally been such gatekeepers. If you want your art in front of collectors, it had to be that you had to have a brick and mortar space that was willing to give you a show. And of course, now that's different with social media. Anyone can put their art on Instagram. But if you want to actually be able to sell it and have collectors see it, these NFT platforms provide the opportunity for anybody, at least the uncurated platforms, to put their artwork and have it be seen and bought. Traditionally with a gallery also, you might have to wait a year or 18 months for your show to happen. But with NFTs, you can immediately, after making the artwork, take it directly to market. And so it's shortening that cycle a lot.
And you benefit from because so many artists are exploited by, you're desperate and you need to pay your rent, so we're going to pay you very little for this painting, then resell it and make all the money. And it just keeps getting resold, and the artist is like, that's cool. Like, at least they appreciate my art, but now you get a percentage, now you get to enjoy that percentage of that.
Yeah, and you hear so many terrible stories about artists that when they're young, they're hungry and need to eat, and they'll sell a painting in exchange for a meal or something, and then later it's sold at auction for millions of dollars, and that artist is now old and penniless and doesn't have the ability to create new art, so they can't actually profit off of this work that is generating wealth for so many people down the chain of ownership as the work is changing hands. And with NFTs made into the smart contracts, you're actually able to retain some royalties. So every time that the artwork's sold, you're guaranteed automatically to receive a portion of that.
I was talking to a music manager who was talking about concert tickets as NFTs, and they were talking about the idea that it almost eliminates the scalpers because you can just auction off your concert ticket. The artist gets to benefit, and you get to benefit if you don't go. You're like, I'll go to that show, but if I get 10x this, maybe I won't. But you can actually. The artist gets to be part of the chain now instead of being exploited at the bottom and cut off.
And that's great too in terms of scalping, because then you actually know the authenticity of the ticket because it is there on the blockchain.
Exactly. So I think this is just the beginning. And so I want to ask you, Ingrid. I'm so curious, which is because when you participate in this model as an artist, and you said you're new to the space. Now all of a sudden, like, you sold it and you got this like Ethereum stuff, which goes up and down, and now all of a sudden you unexpectedly become like an investor and not just sort of like a detached artist. Normally you sell art or something, you get some fiat, you put it in the bank, you put it on a budget, but now you get this like Ethereum stuff that moves volatilely up and down. Probably less volatile than some of the currencies made us
I'm
about.
actually more invested in the community, because the community has been so beautiful. I'm on Discord and I'm talking to all these people that love the art, and I'm invested in them, and I really want this to grow because I want them to make money from it too. So it's just seeing a community grow. A long time ago, I wanted to put my art, and I put it on Instagram, and I was making a series of collections of what ifs. They're funny comics, and but I didn't see that community or just marketing that page was so much work that I was like, okay, I need to move on to something else. But now seeing it here and actually being able to interact with everybody. It's just I'm very committed into growing this. Not only am I the artist, but also I had to learn marketing.
Yeah, but it's true. You become a community leader. These communities are built so quickly, and I want to ask you. And do you prefer we can call this K-88, or is there another?
Manu's fine.
What's that?
Manu.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that feels like much more natural. All right. So the question is, I wanted to talk about kind of pay-to-earn games and kind of where that's going, and also how that's, how that might shift and change the culture and opportunities in Latin America.
Well, play-to-earn is like a consequence of NFT gaming, and for Latin America, it has been massive because maybe by playing, you can earn $100, $200, $300 a month. You know that the minimum salary is like $200 in Latin America, so they are basically doubling what they're earning. So that's some way that people has find to really make their living. And right now you can see like 80 years old granny playing a video game. But it's true. I mean, it's true. They're playing like Pokemon with the cards. It's Axie Infinity, the game. It's like a Yu-Gi-Oh with Pokemon, like a mix. And they're learning, and sometimes you go to a supermarket and you see like an old woman playing and saying, hey, do you think this card is gonna... Wow. I can't believe this. I mean, when I was young, I mean, I'm 33. When I was like 18, yeah, I'm not pretty old, I know, but well, I'm 33. When I was 18, it was like pretty into my age, the games. It was not so mainstream to play. And right now, everybody's playing. And at the beginning, it was just making money. And now, I mean, they want to win. I mean, it's like, yeah, my grandma wants to win.
That's
So
awesome.
I must help her. So yeah, it's like a whole change of mind. It's pretty cool. They're learning not only about crypto, about finance, about the bank system, about they are learning about games.
I think that's one of the most exciting. I mean, I was onboarded. Everybody here, in some way, I think it may be true, was onboarded through their passion, not through money. Like I was in crypto because there was a site called Steam It, where like who said yeah, awesome, where I literally just like somebody just told me about it. Like I'd heard about Bitcoin, but I kind of posted a blog post, and then I got paid in like crypto. That was worth like $7,500. And I'm like, cool. I turned that into some Bitcoin, which like it was just like, holy, this is like the best I've ever been paid for my writing. So I did a test. I decided I'm going to do a test. I'm going to write about Steam It for Rolling Stone. Then I'm going to write about the article I wrote for Rolling Stone on Steam It and see which performs better financially. And guess which one did way better was Steam It. So I'm like, oh, this is the way. It was so interesting, but you're able to join this by playing some of these games, by putting up your art, by creating this and curating this collection and this community, by realizing your passions for fashion, digital fashion. You can be onboarded without actually making a dollar for token investment. And so I wanted to ask you if you wanted to recommend what pay to earn games either A, you're most excited about that are out or that are coming. Because I bet there are a lot of people here who haven't got into that yet, and I feel like that's the next, or already here.
Well,
wave.
right now, the biggest one, and maybe the one with the biggest vision for the future, and that really respects the crypto space, is Axie Infinity, by far. Then there are a lot of games that it's just like they are looking for an opportunity to make money. Yeah, I mean, like shit coins.
Right.
Games
Shit
persons.
games.
Yeah, shit games. I mean, but well, I think that the biggest one is Axie Infinity. Then you have Illuvium, you have the Centraland, you have the Sandbox, another really good game. But well, you have to be careful because right now it's like the new cool thing, and everything is right now is NFT gaming, and that's like shit gaming. You have to be careful. But yeah, I would say Axie Infinity.
Great. And what do you have to be careful of?
The same things that everything it happens like a million times in the crypto space. It's like the opportunity to make fast money. So the developers are not really into the game; they're just looking to make money. So after 2 days, they close the project and that's it. Or maybe there was never even a project. Just you put money into the token and nothing happened at all. I mean,
Right.
it has happened a million times,
Yeah.
and it's pretty easy to scam people when they know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think that's the sad thing in the space. There's so much fear and distrust, and getting scammed is almost part of what you're signing up for. And again, it's like it doesn't work for people who are maybe this is the way they're saving money or trying to conserve that money. So I'm fascinated to maybe we can talk about that further at the round table. And and Alexis, I wanted to ask you, is now working with sort of NFTs, is that making you switch, changing anything about the way you actually create your art, not just the way you maybe distribute it?
So previously, I was not able to actually market my video artwork as something that would be available to collectors. And now that it is, I'm taking video so much more seriously. Because before, when I would create video of my process, it was more content rather than fine art. And so it's allowing me to express myself in this other medium and actually be incentivized to create the stuff I wanted to be creating anyway.
And can I ask you what you've learned from doing it so far? I feel like everyone's first drop or what have you, they learn the lessons that they apply to the next one. So what are some lessons you've learned from doing it so far?
I've mostly learned that it's a crapshoot. That every time I launch an NFT, I'm like, okay, I'm going to tweak these things so that it'll perform better and it'll be optimized, and then it'll perform exactly the same. Right. And it's like, okay, none of my hypotheses were at all relevant. Yeah. And I find a lot of it actually has to do with the crypto markets on the whole. And it might not just be my artwork, but broader trends.
Yeah. We really have the illusion of having more control than we do. Like I have a friend who wanted to bought some token, but bought the wrong one, and it did amazingly. And then when he bombed, I'm like, we really don't know. What you said is we really don't know, and so much is not up to us, and just make great art and bring it out there and move on to the next piece.
I do have to say I did do an NFT drop. I think it was May 20th or whenever that day was, that overnight Bitcoin dropped around $20,000. People who had previously collected my artwork may have been liquidated or were having other issues going on in their life and weren't interested in spending crypto at that moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. It puts you into the market as an artist, like I was talking to Ingrid about. So yeah, and I'm curious. We also haven't talked, like Emma Jane, like a little bit about what Digital X does and the digital fashion space and kind of what you're excited about on the creative side.
Yeah, so well, a bit of background about myself. I came into crypto more from the financial side. So I was co-piloting a hedge fund, and it was all about options trading. So setting up variant swap contracts or like tail risk, black swan hedging for the crypto market. So if anyone knows what tail risk hedging is, it's not speculative trading, it's not day trading or swing trading, but rather it's where you kind of set up this spread of puts and call options around, you know, a contract or a price, an asset, and you bleed out or you lose money for like the majority of the time, but as soon as there's like a major market change, you cash in massively if you do it right. And so that's really how I came into the space, was from this tail risk hedging approach. And yeah, so I had that more financial background, and then before that my background was more space engineering, but I dropped out to go into Web3 full-time and in trading. And the more that I went into it, I was really interested by it, and I loved kind of the finance side, but I kept realizing that you can't really like onboard people through finance into crypto. You can in certain ways, and like reserve government, this is like a completely different case, but you can't in terms of bigger market segments that I was really looking at that time. I was like, well, how can I actually reach the most amount of people, and what does it take to do that? And so I kind of went in a deep dive of, well, what doesn't exist in Web3 today, or what could be something I could build really authentically and native to this layer. And I came across fashion, and I was like, wow, this industry is so fundamental. I mean, textile production kind of underwrites computing. And it's just what's been through society for so many years, whether that's a status symbol, expressing ourselves, identity, our second skin, our interface to how we interact with everyone else around us. Fashion has always been there. And now when we think about this concept of the metaverse, which is a lot of people are talking about now, you know, last year it's like you talked about it, everyone thought you were crazy, you're just like talking about this future thing. And now when you talk about it, everyone's like, yes, the metaverse, you know, 100K going down right on that. But, I mean, it's true, right? But so I really like just started realizing this more. And I was also realizing, because I loved DeFi as well, and I was like, you can't go down in the street and start talking to someone about yield farming or staking or, you know, locking up your assets in this contract and then it flipping here, because they're just like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's just so out of my reach. But you go down the street and you talk to someone about fashion, and 95% of people are like, wow, that's cool. Or do you see what, you know, so-and-so wore at the Met Gala? They're interested and they want to know about it because it's feeding their desire. So yeah, and then I was like, well, I'm going to, you know, leave this kind of financial stuff behind. Sure, it served me incredibly well in building Digital X, but leave it behind from an interface layer and go more into fashion. And so September last year, I founded Digital X, and what is it? It's very kind of confusing to explain to people because it's, you know, a completely new concept, but it's really a Web3 fashion protocol, and that covers digital fashion, which is like in-game skins. It also covers physical fashion as well. It covers designer DAOs. It covers taking, you know, a physical NFT fashion line and then being able to stake that NFT in a contract and then earn cryptocurrency for that. So this whole idea of how do you actually where to earn, how do you put your fashion to work for you without being a model. But it's this whole kind of, yeah, comprehensive ecosystem of digital, physical fashion, combining NFTs, DeFi, DAOs, yeah, all of this crazy stuff. So, but really the point is about how do you unfreeze and unlock all this value? How do you allow designers, creators to come in, be able to actually express themselves, have productive capacity, show creative power, earn a living from that, and then as a buyer, a wearer, or holder as well, not just have this static asset that you're going to throw out in a few weeks or wear 7 times and chuck out, but actually put that to work for you, create value, create money, create wealth, prosperity. So yeah, that's kind of, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I love this. The first time I heard like where to earn. I love that. Who else had the first time hearing where to earn? Yeah, now that you can remember this moment. I'm thinking now, what else can we do to earn? That's really where it's going. I love that. And Ingrid, any lessons that you learned from doing the Invaders drop that you going to bring over to your next drop?
Absolutely. Yes. Hi. Yeah, absolutely. I have a band. That's how it is. I have 2 developers. I have 1 marketing genius. I have 1 writer that's been kind to help with the storyline. But I wouldn't have done it. It's not only about the art, but it's everything. It's like an orchestra. It's everyone plays in harmony, and so that is the one thing that I see that it's working when you have a team where you guys ride on the same wavelength. And so that's one of the things that I've learned. Also, I learned to be a little bit more organized, and I was able to make the Invaders within about a week, putting it all together. And so, yeah, just having a solid team, one person could make it or break it, and that's one of the
Great thing about. The great thing about crypto is it moves so fast that you have to move fast. So 10,000 pieces in a week, like it'd be insane if someone told you that as an artist. And it's so interesting too, because I see like my 6-year-old with Pokemon cards, right? He collects them. He doesn't play the game. He doesn't even know how to play the game, but he really wants the rare cards. And people are so confused about NFTs. It's just like, look at a 6-year-old. It's like, look, it's just sort of really intuitive. And so I just want to ask before we wrap this up and move on to the fireside chat part, if anyone has any questions for the panel or questions in general at all. And I can't see your hands, so you can just kind of shout them out. Stark, yeah. Yeah.
So I play Axie Infinity, and right now, to play, you need 3 of them, and each one costs... So I play Axie Infinity, and you need 3 of them to play, 3 Axies, and right now, each one costs around the minimum, like $300. So something I'm worried about is pricing out people, especially in Latin America, because how are they even going to afford to stake 3 of them? And then what if the value goes down too? That's a lot of money for those kind of people.
Yeah, well, in Latin America, we use the scholar system, which I have myself. I put money so that people can play, and it's like a profit share. So I have right now 400 scholars, and it's people that have not paid at all. So I pay their entrance, and then with the money we split, they kind of save it to keep the money or invest in their own account. More or less like 10% of my scholars a month are going like on their own then with the savings. So it's pretty cool because that way they not only have an income, but they can save, and then they can buy their own assets to play by themselves. Even some of my first scholars right now have scholars.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm curious also, Jane, like does it's Ethereum, the fees are so daunting, and the ecosystem really is on Ethereum. Obviously, it's cheaper on Matic or on Solana or what have you. It's pennies there, but all the action is there. So what do we kind of do about that? Because it does create a lot of restriction and sort of economic hierarchy as far as who can participate.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, really good question. So DigitalX, we started out on Ethereum, and I love Ethereum because it's so authentic to just the decentralized developer base and activity. But in February of this year, we were one of the first projects to move on to Polygon Network and Matic. And if we didn't do that, it would have been just really difficult to just complete a lot of the NFT drops that we do and bring in new people into the ecosystem, because on Matic it's incredibly cheap. You're like paying cents. I mean, it's gone up a little bit now, but still compared to Ethereum, it's a lot cheaper. So definitely layer 2 solutions are really important. And if we didn't have them, I remember we did an NFT drop, an auction in January, and it was like $14,000 to set up the auction. And that was cheap. We waited like it was something like crazy. We were meant to go live mid-January or something, then we had to keep like waiting because it was just like, it was like 30K at one point. I was like, no, we just cannot do that. We've got to like have a bit of like a fiduciary responsibility. But yeah, it was just crazy. But now on Matic, it's so easy. It's just like we're dropping NFTs all the time and, you know, experimenting. Just what you can also do with smart contracts from a developer base is so much more exciting because you don't have to worry about, just will this transaction actually like fit through the gas fee and through the network. But that still doesn't solve it all because Polygon Network is still a new network. There's a lot of issues. If anyone knows about it, I'm sure you experience there's like failures in transactions so much of the time. And that's just coming with the network evolving and, you know, just the itself, Polygon Network becoming more mature. And I'm sure other layer 2 solutions will come through. But it's a hard kind of question also to ask because sure, there are solutions like Solana and other blockchains, and you know, maybe people have controversial views here in the audience, but just about a week ago, Solana went down. I think it was for something like 23 hours, and it's because the blockchain itself is heavily centralized. It's not actually decentralized blockchain. So why the you know, controllers could just switch off the network, which is what they did, and none of the nodes really had a say. And so that doesn't really represent a blockchain. It doesn't represent decentralization. It's not a principle, it's not an ethos, a feature of actually what we're here to build. And so it is kind of, you know, that trade-off right now of waiting for Ethereum to upgrade to proof of stake, accepting the dodgy layer 2s, but then also in some ways paying a bit of the price of what it means to be decentralized rather than go to a solution like Solana, which can seem great until you realize it's not great and everything gets lost. Yeah, so it's hard.
Great answer. Awesome. We'll take one more question and wrap it up if someone has one more question out there. Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Hey, so this is a little bit of a softball for Emma Jane. It's great to see you in person. Emma was on my show in May, and I think I will ask a broader component too as well, but I'm curious how you are integrating and co-creating fashion from a textile perspective, because I think that's really interesting. We've talked a lot tonight about art and in the freedom of the artist, but there's also this opportunity to co-create in the space, which we're moving towards with Web3. And I'm curious, as artists, where you think there might be boundaries on that. How far can it go before it gets to be a little bit of a drain clog with too many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah, this works? Yeah. Okay, that's a really good question. And I'll answer it first more from the digital side because we focused a lot on that, is how do you actually compose a digital or just a fashion supply chain in general. I'm sure a lot of people here heard about the Loot project, which went crazy. Maybe no one did, but it was like Loot NFT'S a few weeks ago. And that was really interesting because it was all about composability, which is a really important feature when we think about building the metaverse, just like the raw fundamentals of what NFTs represent is kind of like backing digital assets or any asset really. But this idea of composability within digital fashion and allowing artists, designers to come in and co-create a master garment is actually something that we put forth, or we executed and implemented today within DigitalX and within our ecosystem, and it's called fractional garment ownership. And how it works is artists can actually kind of mint 1155 NFTs into these open source digital libraries or smart contracts that we have of different patterns, materials, and textures. And they put those out there, they're open source, and then another designer can come on and they can actually take that 1155 NFT and that pattern, material, texture, they use that in their master garment, and that master garment gets minted as a 721 that owns the 1155, which is like that whole representation on chain. And what that means, when there's that final sale now of that 721, there's actually a fractional royalty split between all of the contributors to that master garment from that pattern, material, and texture level. So it's highly experimental, and you know, a lot of people, as we know, that fractional royalties and smart contracts, it's not fully interoperable. It's like still, okay, you can right click and save, or if you're taking that into another smart contract layer ecosystem, it doesn't just have that kind of seamless royalty split, but it is something that we're operating and using within our ecosystem. We have a designer DAO, which has hundreds of designers, you know, that are like saying an FU to traditional fashion and coming onto the Web3 fashion train, and they're experimenting with these tools that we're building for them. But it is a really important point, because composability is so important, and that's, you know, even to your point about, well, pricing people out, it's how do you break things down into smaller components? How do you back value behind, you know, what could have been seen as scraps in the traditional world, but you can actually now back that by a digital asset, by ownership, by verification, by a ledger, and then be able to actually use that. So that's kind of what fractional garment ownership is all about, is even if you're a designer and creator that doesn't know 3D yet, or you're just getting into fashion, instead of thinking, well, you know, like what you mentioned about kind of reducing the time to market, instead of thinking I have to spend ages like learning a new program, well, instead just go on and create like a texture or a pattern, which can even like take you 5 minutes in like a photo mosh program, and you can release that, and now you can start gaining royalties, building your reputation, building your community, building your value, your net worth, and then use that to kind of iterate and leap up and make bigger moves, make greater impact. So it's a very good question. I mean, it's completely not solved. We're looking at the physical fashion side now as well, but thank you for asking it, because I love composability in fashion.
Awesome. And if I'd recommend following all the panelists here, KManus88, both on Twitter and on YouTube. I think it has 750,000 YouTube subscribers or something insane like that. I think Alexa Mead, Instagram's probably your main place where you can really see. You really have to see the art. It's incredible if you haven't seen it. Like, I highly recommend it. And of course, following on OpenSea as well. Is excellent. And then also Emma Jane, where's the best place to kind of follow you and keep up with your amazing ideas?
Probably Twitter. So it's EmmaJane13.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. And then Ingrid, if you want to support Ingrid, you can. It's the Invaders Twitter Invaders NFT. You can go grab it. An amazing Invader on OpenSea. They're doing drops of spaceships. The Invaders, a whole crazy narrative line that keeps expanding. So it's a super amazing world, because you get one and slowly your wallet just fills up with a storyline and characters, and these plot points happen. So it's so amazing. We've really just scratched the surface, but we have really important things to talk about in the fireside chat shortly, about what Reserve's doing, talking about hyperinflation, talking about the human right of stablecoin currency. I know they're going to encourage you many times to sign a petition to make stablecoins and stable currency a human right. I think it's really important what's happening here today. So I want to hand it back to James Glasscock. Thank you for making this happen. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you. All right, we're going to reset. Well, it's a fireside chat, so we got to have a fire. That's coming up. Tacos are here for about another 15, 20 minutes, so get them while they're hot.